to do a remake of the very first video that Brent and I did together, smoking and canning oysters. That was over 5 years ago, and a lot has changed since then. We've got better equipment, better sound, and this is one of my favorite recipes. So we're going to shoot it one more time and hope you enjoy it. So step one is oysters and oyster acquisition. I live in South Bend, Washington, and the oyster capital of the world, and we're able to buy nice shucked small oysters down there, just a half-gallon containers. We're going to be doing a couple gallons today. Step one is to blanch the oyster. So I've got some boiling water here on the stove. I don't know if you can see that or not. I'm going to put a strainer inside of them, and I'm going to hope that I guessed the volume of my water about right so I don't spill boiling water all over myself. Both in here.
Where might people find oysters in bulk like this?
I'm Pacific Oyster, South Bend, Washington.
Coast Oyster.
Yeah, Coast Oysters. They could contact maybe Taylor Seafoods. So I've got the oysters in here now. I'm going to let them sit in this hot water for maybe 5 to 10 minutes till the edges curl up. The purpose of this is to basically cook the oyster in advance. It firms them up so we're not having to worry about cooking them with the smoker and all of that. So this is a really key step, just plain water. We've done 2 gallons now. This is the second 1 gallon batch coming out of the parboil. And the other batch has been cooling down. We're going to drain the last of them here and get them cooled down and go on with the brine. One other thing I found at U.S. Chef Store, formerly Cash and Carry, that I thought I'd talk about, not related to oysters, is these knives. They're made by Dynamic. I don't know if you can get a shot of that. But these things, I bought a couple of them just to try them out because they were so cheap. This is a $12 slicing knife, and when I got it home, these things were unbelievably sharp. I have not put a lot of use on them, but for the price point of $12, you can't go wrong. You got to go to a party someplace, you want to bring a slicing knife, bring this one.
And no, we are not sponsored by U.S. Chef Store, formerly known as Cash and Carry.
We are not.
We should be. And you know, I always tell those guys when I go in, Ron, they need a 12-step program. So we are transferring them to a cold water bath just to get them cooled down in preparation for brining.
We'll run them through that water a couple times to get them good and cool. We'll talk about the brine while the oysters are cooling down. This is a mixture of 1 cup white sugar, 1 cup Morton's Kosher salt, 1 cup brown sugar, and 1 tablespoon of Cure number 1. So that's all this is here. I pre-mix this batch and then I put it in a shaker like this. This is just an Old Spice container. I try to get the one with the 3 big holes in it for sprinkling the brine on the oyster.
The story about how you met each other.
How we met each other out here on July 4th, 2015.
Well, December 31st.
Who brokered that deal?
Well, it was me. Yeah. Well, kind of. It was you.
Yeah, there we go.
It was you and Danette
Yeah.
that
Once I found out
brought us
Ron and
together.
Jeanette were dating, I was like, I could do worse with a
So-
brother-in-law.
cheers.
So the next step is lay all the oysters out to get the brine sprinkled on them. I got a nice aluminum tray here. Just want them laid out. You know, touching a little is fine. This is the long boring part. Through the magic of fast forward, we'll make this look really fast. We're getting ready to brine now. One of the little tricks you'll notice is I did not fill my container totally up with a brine mixture. Makes it shake out easier through those holes. So just a nice light coating. You can see how well this works with those 3 holes like that. As you can see, we've got all the oysters brined on one side now. We're going to let them sit 90 minutes on this side, then we're going to flip them over and do the same thing on the other side. Let them sit for another 90 minutes. Been an hour and a half on this side. We're just flipping them all over now. We're going to brine up the other side, let them sit for another hour and a half. We've been brining the oysters now on the second side for 90 minutes, so 3 hours total. We'll give them a rinse. Decent rinse. Once I get one tray clear, I'll put my smoker rack on it. Start placing the oysters on the smoker rack. So I've taken the rack, sprayed it down with a non-stick cooking spray. We're placing the oysters on it now. You want them to, you can have them really close touching, but you really don't want one layered over the other. So we got all of our oysters racked up now. Got them a little tighter than what I would do on smoking a lot of other things, but these shrink up in pretty short order and allow good smoke flow around the oyster. So we're going to let them sit outside here and air dry for 5 or 10 minutes just till they're tacky to touch, and then we'll get them in the smoker and get them smoking. My smoke generator I've covered in building your own smoker, I think, and maybe another video out there. So if you have any questions about how that works, I'd refer you to them. I went over in pretty good detail. For chips, I'm just going to use apple chips for the oysters here. Alright, we're going to load it up. I did not preheat my smoker at all. I'm going to run it at 200 degrees. Smoke time, the other video I talked about doing it 170 to 190. But by not preheating and running it at 200, I should end up with plenty of good cold smoke on them to start with, and then warm up and cook them a little bit. So let's get the oysters loaded. So we talked a little bit earlier about how tight this rack is. We'll pull them at the end and you'll be able to see how much these will shrank up. I thought that was a big pearl there, but it wasn't. Alright, smoker's closed up and we'll check on them about an hour, hour and a half. So it's been 2 hours on the smoker now. Remember, I started out with a cold smoker and set my heat at 200 degrees, so it's been up to, took about an hour for it to warm up to 200 degrees, and it's been an hour at 200 degrees, so they're looking pretty good. You can see how things are shrinking back. I think I'm going to go ahead and rotate the top and bottom rack here. The top rack's looking a little more done, and just move things around a little bit. So taking them out now. We've I ran the last hour of smoke at 230 degrees to get the firmness. They're not quite the way I wanted them before, but these are looking pretty darn nice right now. Well, I'm going to start packing the jars. I don't know if you watched the first video or not, but if you leave the rings on the jars, it saves you wiping down the rims later. can really save you a lot of time canning tuna and stuff like that, or some other fish. So we ended up with 27 half-pint jars. I usually figure 24 for a gallon of oysters. For, 24 for 2 gallons of oysters. So I saved one out for taste test. Really good. Perfect. All right. So now we're gonna get the lids on the jars and the canner loaded. You'll notice on my canner that I've got a lot of these. I like just using Presto brand canners. They're cheap, they're easy to find parts for. You can find them at garage sales. Since I have a lot of these, I mark on the lid the same letter so I know which lid goes with which canner. Then I write on the top what sealing ring, because if there's a part that goes bad, it's a sealing ring. When you're putting the rings on the jars, you just get them down to where they're just touching with your fingertips. You don't want them tighten. I got my first row down. To start my second row, I just offset them so they can seal. You don't want one lid sitting directly on top of the other one. Makes them seal easier. Alright, you'll notice in this that I've got this, the canner tells you can only get 3 rows. You can get 4 rows in. Our canning parameters are, after it comes up to pressure, which we want 10 pounds, and we want to can them for 90 minutes. For the half-pint jars at pressure. I'll show you another thing that I've talked about before, but I really love them. These are a variable poundage weight. So if I had both of them on, it would be 15 pounds with just one on. It's 10 or 11 pounds, and with none on, it would be 5 pounds of weight. I find these to be more accurate overall than the pressure gauge itself. So I gotta bring it up and let it steam vent out for 5 minutes before I put the weight on, and then as soon as it comes up, I'll note the time. 90 minutes later, they're done. So our oysters have been canning now for 90 minutes. We're gonna take them outside and let things cool down.
Make a hole for Ron.
Alright, so those of you new to pressure canning, really important. Let all the pressure come out of the canner on its own just by cooling down. Don't lift the weight off. Don't try to open the lid.
And what's the reason?
The jars won't seal if you
Rapid depressurization.
Depressurize it. So we'll come back in this. This canner here has got a little knob here in the middle. It's up in the air. I don't know if you'll be able to see that or not. This is an old one. Newer ones have a actual automatic latch, so you can't open them when there's still pressure in it. So we'll wait for that to drop, and then we'll unload the canner and see how we did sealing jars. So if you notice our pressure gauge.
Hold it. What, Stan? What the hell was that?
Did you
That
see?
was Gene. He told me about.
I thought you were gonna say a frog or a barking spider. I didn't think you were gonna blame that on Gene.
Snipe.
So we're good to go.
Yeah, we're rolling.
Okay, so you can see that the pressure gauge is at 0. The little here is down. Next thing
The indicator
the little
is
indicator.
lowered.
Pressure.
I'm going to take this off. No pressure came out, so we're going to open it up. When you take the lid off, tilt it away from you so the steam doesn't blow back in your face and fog up your glasses. Give you 3rd-degree burn.
I can
so-
see that guy right there is not, the seal hasn't sunk in yet, but as it cools.
There's a lot of them that probably haven't.
Yeah.
This one looks like it's dented.
It's still cooking. You
So,
can see it boiling.
so when I pull these out, if you wanted to grab, this one's got a problem.
We might have to eat those.
If you guys wanted to start tightening the rings on these with a set of gloves,
Stan, that's you.
Oh.
Did you take care of that barking spider?
Yes.
Okay, so we're good.
There's a few more out here, but
what the heck that was?
So this was about, what, we started at 9, it is now 7:30?
you're not liking these, or that
No,
one's
no,
boiling?
just tighten, just give the lids a quarter of a turn.
Snug them up.
Boiling, they're gonna go.
There's one just sealed,
One just popped.
so that was the lid sucking down.
Yep.
So you get 2 benefits from pressure canning. One, you can heat the liquid to higher than 212. What did it go up to,
Which-
Ron? About 245?
240, which is what kills botcha liquid.
That's right, because 212 won't do it. Second benefit is, as it cools, it contracts and it'll seal those lids with those rubber seals.
And it, I don't know if you can see, like there, the jar's boiling. If you pull it out and the jar's boiling
is.
like that,
It is.
guaranteed that it's going to seal.
Now, Gene, when I put the credit roll on this, what am I going to do for you?
Eugene Irving King Jr., the mayonnaise farmer
Mayonnaise farmer, okay.
from Craigsville.
Stan, what are your thoughts?
Very few.
You think we're going to go
Never good.
27 for 27?
No, I guarantee you we're not, because I found that one that's got the. Most of these have already sealed.
It's hot.
So
Ron.
But it will.
the center is up on
Center's
that
up.
one. Oh,
That one
one
just-
of them just went.
This one just sealed.
Ye of little faith.
That was almost as good as catching an elk bugle
Give it time.
here in a can.
Alright,
Seal itself.
that's it. Let them cool down.
Oh, the other one just popped.
So that's it. We're 27 for 27. Damn it!
Hey, what's up, bub?
No oysters for you.
Now we gotta wait till my
Pennsylvania.
niece gets married.
So all the jars have sealed. It's a nice satisfying ping. You can still see these jars boiling, which I'll continue to do for a long time. And the reason they're boiling is because they're under vacuum. So water boils at a much lower temperature in a vacuum. So anyway, that's it. We'll do, you'll see all the juice in here. We added nothing to these. It's just our own natural juices. And as these cool down, a lot of that will reabsorb into the oyster.
And you know, that reminds me, Ron, not to cut you off, but we had comments on the previous oyster video about should they add, or the smoked salmon one, should they add oil in the jar before canning?
You can on oysters. I much prefer it without it. They're much later. But that's a personal taste issue, and I'm not going to tell you what you should like.
I would say if you were a tablespoon for flavor, do not think that you need to put moisture in these jars.
Yeah.
Because as you can see, we put them in dry and they're half full of liquid.
And another thing I pretty well advocate, if you go to experimenting, do a small amount. Don't do 2 gallons of oysters all the same and then you find out you don't like it at all. Try a small amount before diving into it, spending a lot of money. So. All right, thanks guys. I hope that clears up our bad sound in our previous smoking and canning oysters video, our first.